Hey everyone, I'm LaFaye Pye, the Prosperity Architect and Strategist, and I am so excited today to introduce you to Tammy. Now, Tammy is, I'm honestly at a loss of words today because I started reading her book yesterday, and it's been on my shelf for a little while, and I've been meaning to get to it, but you know how you have things to do, right? But I started it last night, and all day today, all my workers went to the wayside because once I got into this, I could not literally put it down. So Tammy, do you want to introduce yourself to our audience a little bit?
Hello, thank you so much. What a lovely introduction. Thank you, LaFaye. Well, I'm Tammy, and yes, I am the author of the book that you're reading. And it just came about because of the trauma that I've been through in life and the different experiences that I've been through in life, and trauma. It comes down to trauma. And I just thought, if I write about this, I might be able to help somebody.
And oh, what a book it is. So Tammy's book, Trauma to Triumph, it is really amazing. It's called A Spiritual Awakening. Now, what she goes through in the book, I don't know how much she wants to tell you about it and how much she doesn't want to tell you about it. I'll leave that up to Tammy. But in all honesty, she goes through some traumas in her works. All of us, one of the things that I talk about a lot is how we need to enjoy our work and how we need to feel safe and comfortable in our job and work on something that we love to do. Now, Tammy started off very young. And maybe, Tammy, do you want to tell us a little bit about the way you grew up? Maybe we should start there.
Yeah, I grew up in a family that Dad was the disciplinarian, Dad was the controller, he was a bully in essence. He can't see that, even to this day, he can't see that, but that's ultimately what it came down to, a controlling type man. And because of that, a child that grows up in that sort of environment really can't make decisions for themselves because they're dictated to, you must do this, you must do that. So I grew up where I couldn't make decisions for myself. If I did try to make decisions for myself, they were the wrong decisions. And so that then brings about low self-worth, self-esteem, a whole lot of stuff that goes on, which you'll have noticed is in the psychological reflections at the end of each chapter. It sort of captures that. And anyway, long story short, I ended up doing a university degree that I really didn't want to be doing, and because I wanted to be doing something else, but I couldn't do that. And so I ended up in the prison system here in Australia, a maximum security male prison, and I was 21 years of age, straight out of university, and I went straight into university from high school, so there was really no life experience. I was naive, I was young, I was female, into a maximum security male prison dealing with rapists and murderers and the most horrific of horrific child molesters, really, really bad men, and therefore then experienced horrific events within the prison system like hangings and self-harms and violence, and something a 21-year-old should not experience. Well, no one should really have to experience that sort of stuff. So does that sort of answer that?
It does. And it really opens up, when you start talking about your childhood, what really drew me in was that it's real and it's raw. And when you start talking about your childhood, I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe she's saying all these things. Because in all honesty, there are going to be so many women, I'm sure there's men out there too, boys, and kids, but there's going to be so many women that really resonate with what you say, and it's going to speak to them, and it's going to be so powerful because they're going to start realizing, oh my crap, this is why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. This is why I'm lost. This is why I don't know what way to turn in my business. This is why I'm looking for somebody to tell me what to do, because I've never really made my own decisions. And that's all in the first little part of her book, right?
Yeah, and it was very therapeutic for me to write the book. As you can imagine, I was getting it all out. Getting it all out was really, really, really powerful for me, and it started to make a lot more sense. And then when I started to work with Ros Phillips, who's the counselor and psychotherapist that does the psychological reflections,
Which are amazing.
Yeah, she's done a great job, hasn't she?
Yes.
Working with her on those, it was so powerful. It was so powerful to actually work with her and to hear her professional insights and understanding. And it was the first time I actually felt fully understood ever.
I can see that.
Now, that's a powerful thing to say. I'm now, as we do this interview, 42 years of age, and to really to feel understood for the first time in my life, very powerful.
Yes. Wow. And I can see those psychological reflections really helping people to understand their own selves, their own lives through you. So I think what you've done is so powerful. And like I said, I almost feel like I'm reading your diary. Like, you know what I mean? And I can't put it down. Like somebody could make a movie out of this. Like it's so in depth, and it really draws you in. Like you're really being drawn into this person's real life, and it's Tammy's.
It's very raw, isn't it?
Yes, I used very raw. I didn't know what other word to say to that, and I hope that was okay, but it's real and it's raw, right?
It's very real, very raw. Warts and all, I don't hide anything. I just, there's no point. I mean, I've been hidden and unseen for long enough. Yeah. And it's just like, well, this is who I am. And yes, the book will help a lot of people, I imagine. It's also opening me up to more ridicule and more judgment as well, because with the good comes the bad. And I just think, well, if people want to take the negative and turn that around, they're not learning the psychological side of a human being.
Yeah. And I can see that, especially, some of the people that you're, mentioning in the book and stuff like that, right? We don't want to own up to our parts. Like I've done many things that, that I should be ashamed of or that I can learn from. Because when you're young, you don't understand sometimes the word I'm trying to say, implementations of what you've done, right? Yes. You don't always mean to be mean, but somebody can take it the wrong way. And that can affect them for the rest of their lives. So as we move further into your book, Tammy, I knew that you had worked in the prison system, and I knew that you had survived, a riot. But what I didn't realize is that when you talk about it in your book, I've lost count of how many there actually were, how many pinpoints there were that caused these traumatic events in your life and all this trauma. I know I had one serious event in my life where I almost lost my life. And you really drew me into that too, because you had the whole left side of your body go numb with pins and needles. And I had the exact same thing happen to me after a really bad traumatic experience where I almost lost my life at the hands of another person. And to hear you say that, it was like, oh my goodness, I wonder how many other people have had these life-threatening and life-altering situations and had it physically affect them to this point. And what you go through, it wasn't one, like mine, it wasn't over a weekend. Yours was like over and over and over and over again, to the point where I lost count. And you come out on the other side, this beautiful, wonderful person who's willing to share all this and willing to take all this backlash for this book. Like, people really need to read this. They really need to get out there, because it's going to affect how they live their life and how it affects their businesses, like how they hide away from certain aspects of their businesses, correct?
Thank you. Yeah, you've just put that so beautifully. Thank you. To put all those horrendous things in such a beautiful way. Thank you. Yeah, it's I don't know actually how many either, to be honest. I actually haven't counted them up, but it was a lot, and it just seemed to be that cyclic every couple of months. The riots would go off, and without the other staff, without the other officers, without the other friends, I don't think any of us would have actually got through that. And at the time, and I speak about trying to tell Mum about what I was experiencing and what I was going through, and it was really, really, really hard to sort of capture the words and to capture the seriousness of what we were going through. And so people really didn't have a full understanding of what was going on. And then we had the media as well, reporting on things, but not actually giving from the officer's point of view either. And that was really hard, because we weren't allowed to speak to the media. We couldn't couldn't actually say, well, hang on, the truth is this. And so just reflecting back on it, it was a pretty rough time. And even at that stage, I was still pretty young. I think I was 24 or 25 still. It was so young. And even experienced officers, those that have been, you know, working for years and years and years, they were affected as well.
Oh my goodness, I can only imagine. And then to have your whole world turn around, because, you know, you think when you're watching the news that they're giving you a true, even story. Yes, they're you know, explaining the bad stuff. But I remember after my incident, I remember walking down the street and somebody actually stopping and starting to cry, and they go, I thought you were dead. Like, you know, literally. And I just looked at them and I was like, no, I'm here. So that's how news spreads. Like, nobody really, you know, when you're on the outside looking in, you can only give your perspective. You can only see how, you know, what you're seeing or what they think is going to create news, which is so unfortunate, because the people that have really hurt aren't allowed to have that safety, that security that they need in their business. And you really, you know, are in your job, and you showed us in there how you can turn that around.
And isn't it interesting, really, from all of this that I've been through, I actually have now created my own business. Isn't that, it's almost like I had to go through all of this trauma and all of this hurt and all of this life-threatening stuff to then years later to create a business where I am now actually helping and supporting and encouraging people. I mean, would that have happened if I hadn't been through like what I'd been through? It just makes you wonder, doesn't it?
It does. And another thing, when I was reading your book too, I was looking at all those dealings that you had with your dad, right? And how, you know, he was, you know, more cold and more isolated from, you know, showing you the love and affection that you needed. But really, if you had have had that, would you have been too soft to be able to put up with what you put up with? Possibly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We don't
really
know.
Do believe it's. I'm getting all goosebumpy. It's like when you can sit and reflect and look over your life, it all does fall into place exactly as it should. It really does. But whilst you're living it and you're going through it, you often question, why is this happening? Why is this happening? So yeah, I probably would have been too soft, or maybe I would have been a daddy's girl, and like, who knows?
Well, I'm glad you are the person you are now. I'm glad that, unfortunately, you know, you had to go through these things, but it's made you who you are now. And we are so thankful to have somebody in spirit like you here.
Oh, thank you. And isn't it interesting how you connect with the right people, like we've connected, and it's just
through the continents.
I know, all the way. You're all the way over there in Canada, and I'm all the way over here in Australia. And yeah, it's just the connections that come about, and, you know, to hear about your traumas and your experiences. You know, so many people go through stuff, and a lot of people don't know where to turn for help and for support. I don't know if you found it difficult to find that support that you needed after your life-threatening situation.
Never got support, never saw a doctor, never had any of those things. And actually, I was lucky because I got full custody of my son because of what happened. So he was never allowed to even write our son a letter till our son turned 19, and our son hadn't had his first birthday. So all of his parental rights had been taken away because of what he had done to us. But on the other hand, he only spent a few months in jail because he was used as a rat, or, you know, he made a plea bargain and a deal. So he pretty much got away with everything else in the criminal justice system. So, which, you know, and I didn't get any help, like, you know, after that. So I literally moved away and almost, you know, had unpublished phone numbers. Like, I had all this stuff so that he couldn't find me. Like, I lived in fear for a long time.
See, that's, you're speaking to me that did justice studies at university and then worked in the criminal justice system, and that just Yeah, I don't understand the criminal justice system sometimes. I really don't. And for you to be living in fear for that length of time, it does have health effects.
It does. It really does. Our
Mm-hmm.
second child had severe, I did everything the same as I did with the second child as I did with the first one. But a lot of times I wonder if it wasn't my energy and all the trauma that I had been through, because our second son was born with, some disabilities.
Yeah.
Right. And
Definitely.
yeah. And he's a beautiful, beautiful soul. Now he's 23, but he's a beautiful soul. But, sometimes I reflect and wonder if that didn't have something to do with it. Right.
You got to wonder, because we understand energy, and I'm sure your audience and the people watching understand energy, and it does have an impact. So you do have to wonder.
Yeah, we do. But I wouldn't change anything in the world. I'm super excited with the way I am. One of the best things about this interview is I came from one side of it and you were on the other side of the criminal justice system.
Yeah.
Yeah, and your book is so amazing for somebody like me to read and see it from your perspective and from your view of how things went. So I just can't thank you enough, Tammy, for that. But I've only got 3/4 of the way through your book. So we're going to talk about the last quarter now, and how everything got changed around for you. So, tell me about how you found the spiritual side of it, because I truly believe that's where we connect, and that's how we started connecting. Even though we run very serious businesses, and we're both authors, and we're both, you are really, your background now, you've been taking course after course to really have both the spiritual side and the I want to say the doctrine side, right? The physical science behind you too, which I really respect, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So how it all came about is, if I can put it in a nutshell.
Big question.
I hope I don't ruin the ending for you, but you pretty much know where I'm at now anyway. But so long story short is, I got through all of that. I ended up getting married and moving location. So moving from one state of Australia to another state, which is more, we're right up the top now. And I was losing job after losing job after losing job. I was losing lots of different jobs, just because there was still that trauma, still that reaction, where you react to something, and the triggers and all of that sort of stuff. And I'd always been a spiritual person, in that I was fairly soft-natured. Dad was always, you're too thin-skinned, thicken up, and all that sort of stuff that those that feel get told. And I learnt tarot reading, I think I was about 18 or 19, and I just happened to fall into reading the tarot cards, and just loved it. And I only used to play around with that sort of stuff, just to get a bit of guidance. And anyway, years later, moving up to Darwin here in the Northern Territory, and losing job after job. And I just went, why am I doing this? And it was when we were in South America that I had an epiphany. And I just went, I'm going to open my own business. And I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I just knew, and Alex, my husband, Darwin's a very small city. Oh, Darwin's too small. You won't get enough people. It won't be big enough. And I'm thinking, oh, well, there's the internet and there's a world out there, And so I came back from that holiday, and I'd learned Reiki, the energy healing. And I just went, right, I'm going to start a Reiki and tarot reading business. And that's how Tammy's Tarot and Healing came about. I'd had enough of dealing with bosses and people who really, truly didn't understand.
Yeah.
Because I knew I was still, I still hadn't healed fully. It's taken years, and I was still not mixing in well with people. I was still reacting to things. So I'll just do my own tarot reading, and I will help people. And so it started off as that business, and then I thought, it needs a little bit more. I just need a little bit more, like you said, the more what word did you use?
Doctorate. Doctorate.
Yeah. And so that's where I went back and I did a course in clinical hypnotherapy and psychotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
And that just took things to another level again. And then I went on to do my master's of neurohypnotherapy. So really understanding the brain and neuroscience a little bit more, and just what's going on in the brain. And I've done reflexology, and I've done all sorts of different things. And that's now 7 years ago.
Yeah.
7 years ago that I started Tammy Hatherill and Healing, and only in the last 12 months is I've taken it to another level again and opened up Holistic Health Services NT, so a side business that's more focused on the corporate world. So I'm back. I've sort of, when you read the book, you'll find that I've sort of come full circle, and I'm back helping people more on that counselling sort of psychotherapy level, which is just brilliant.
You filled that hole that was missing for you, so that
Yes.
other people won't have that hole there anymore, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I bring into my sessions everything that I've been through, so I can empathize, I have the compassion, I have the ability to push people when they need pushing, or to call out their excuses that they're making, but all done with compassion.
Yeah. It is so interesting that you said it that way, because, sometimes we need that little push. We don't need somebody putting us down, and somebody giving us the cold shoulder, but we need somebody to push us and hold our hand to help us step through that opening, right? Which is
absolutely.
Yeah.
What I feel that I do is to help people learn resilience and the skills, and to then be able to walk on their own.
Yes. Yeah. That's wonderful. That's
a
really great way of putting it. So, I don't know what to say, Tammy. Like, the book is amazing. Like, you're going to help so many people with this. I can only imagine the good reviews that you're going to get from this too, once it's out there. Because right now you're in your smaller circle, because the book hasn't even completely been out there yet, right? As we're making this interview, you're actually about to release the books, right? You haven't had
We've had what I call a soft launch, where
yes.
we've just had a soft launch where, like you said, my inner circle and just those that are sort of but as for the actual launch, where the publisher's actually sending out Facebook stuff, and we have having a high tea for it, so I'm having an actual lovely high tea with food and wine and all that. That hasn't happened yet, but it's coming.
It's so exciting. I wish I could be there for that. I would just love it.
Oh, I'd love you to be here. It's just a wee bit far, isn't it?
A little ways. I think it would take me like a day to get there, 18 hours or something. I think
something like that. Yeah.
Quite a while.
I was going to say, as you know, I also have, because the work that I do is helpful for people, but there's so many other people that are able to help and support. And so I do have, a list of recommended therapists at the end of the book as well. And that includes, beautiful people like yourself. It includes people. There's a beautiful lady in South America. So it's not all just Australian. So this is helping people across the globe, which is exciting.
Yes, I can see that. And I can't wait to finish the book. I have to be honest with you. We're going to get off this interview, and I'm just going to go and I'm going to finish reading it. And I'm probably not going to go to sleep till it's done tonight. So I've got a few more
I'm glad
hours.
you're enjoying it.
I really, really am. And I think it's because I can connect with your story so well. Like, it's really well written. You really pull us in through the stories. Like, you can really visualize it, and you can really see how you've gone through it, Tammy, right? So I really suggest to our audience that you go out and you get Tammy's book, Trauma to Triumph, A Spiritual Awakening. And It is amazing. If you've had any kind of I always get this wrong, PTSD, is that correct?
That's it.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah. Post-traumatic stress disorder. That's the
Yes.
one.
So any kind of, even if you haven't had that extreme, but if you feel like you're lost, if you feel like, there's something that's off and you've never been able to really find yourself, the book might truly help you with that. It might help you to see what events have happened in your past and how that you can filter them out, and get a better, I don't want to say control over yourself, but get a better view of why you're doing the things that you're doing.
Absolutely. And I really feel we've talked about the psychological reflections a lot, but I really, and the feedback so far has been those psychological reflections really just cap what's happened in the chapter and give people an understanding even of their own lives, of what's gone on.
Yes. Yeah. It's a really unique feature to have in a book. I haven't seen anything like that before, which is really fascinating and really helpful. And it also, I think it could help, so many people that are out there that are naturopathic doctors, that are doctors dealing with, traumatic stress disorder and things like that, or anybody, I even know a lot of people who deal with horses, because we own horses too, right? But a lot of people who deal with horses, they want to help people with those traumatic stress disorders. And this would be a fabulous book for them to understand that side of it from a clinician, right? From Roz.
Yeah.
It's fabulous.
Absolutely. And I'm really blessed at the launch, at the actual event that we're having. I've got Dr. Carmen Cabillo, who is the psychologist that's written the actual forward of the book. She's going to be giving a speech about, post-traumatic stress, depression, anxiety. Then, of course, Roz Phillips, who's done the chat at the end of each chapter, she's going to give a speech. And it's interesting that you speak about that horses, because a lady has expressed interest in coming along because she uses horses as a healing tool here where I live, and she wants to be part of it and have her flyers available and things like that. So bringing the animals in, and horses, she will likely be there at the launch as well.
That's fabulous. This is something that's really been missing from the traditional medical system. It used to be that you would heal the mind, body, soul, and your emotions, right? And then all of a sudden, the traditional doctors here have really moved away from that. And it's all about, blood work and, just what they can see, on slides and in x-rays and, in your blood work and stuff like that. And they've realized, I truly believe that most of them have realized that they're missing the whole belief system, the whole spiritual side of everything, and that our beliefs affect our bodies and how we think about ourselves and our traumas and what holes that has left in our healing or able to be healed. So your book, I think, is ahead of its time, right? Or maybe it's the perfect timing, right? It's going to be that for a lot of people, whether they are spiritual, whether they've had some trauma, or whether they're traditional doctors.
Yeah, definitely. And it's now just getting it out there and letting these people, and will these people that really need to read it, are they going to be open enough to learning from another point of view? That's the interesting thing. Let's hope so.
Yes, absolutely. And like I said, it's got the spiritual side to it too, right? Because that's you talk about energy and you talk about feelings and intuition. And I want to go back to the intuition a little bit, right? Because anytime something bad has happened in my life, it's when I didn't listen to my intuition.
Yes.
Right?
How true is that?
It's always true. And I remember, because of the husband that I married, he trusts my intuition now. If I just say something doesn't feel right, he's like, okay, we won't do it. But in the first 10 years of our marriage, it was like, that doesn't feel right. And he's like, well, why are you going on your feelings? It has no logic. And
isn't that amazing? I always say to my clients, always trust your intuition. It won't lead you astray, but logic and analyzing stuff will.
Yes. I truly believe in strategy and having a plan, but you can pivot that plan and you can pivot that strategy at any moment if it doesn't feel right.
Exactly. You can always change direction. Always. It's
Absolutely.
amazing. People get locked into, this is my idea and this is where I'm going, and they stick to it and they don't trust the feelings that come through.
Yeah. Because sometimes you're led down these paths. Um, for example, if we talk about, if it's okay, I'd like to talk about the riot. So, if you would have listened to your gut in a couple of these situations, you wouldn't have been in those situations, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And because you kept ignoring that situation kept coming up and over and over and over again, like it did in my life and like it does in a lot of other people's lives. But as soon as you listen and you're like, I ain't doing this anymore. There's my bad.
Yep.
I ain't doing that anymore. I'm going to pivot and I'm going to change. And then all of a sudden it's like, I want to say, right? Like, all of a sudden the heart starts to play and everything goes so good because you've listened and you've moved through it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. I love that. It's like that choir of angels going, yeah.
Exactly. You do it so much better than me. That's exactly what it is. And they're like, she's got it. She can move into that new direction and she doesn't need this turmoil anymore.
Yeah, it's like, finally, she's heard us. We've been screaming at her for so long. Yeah, I think I even write that it felt like freedom. It just felt like freedom.
Yes, you did. That's one of the pieces of paper I have here. I marked on that.
And it's funny, when you reach that point, you do not care what anyone else thinks, what anyone else's input is, what anyone else is going to say or criticize you. My father, as you know, was a big influence in my life, probably more on the negative, and I didn't even care what his response was going to be. That was it. I was out.
Yep, that's true. And I guess we just need to be in that hole, deep enough in that hole to realize, you know what, I can't stand the darkness anymore.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it's been an interesting ride.
Yes, absolutely. Now, but without all of this, and I want people to get this too, without all of those negative situations, nobody wants to be in them. Nobody likes it when they're in the middle of the thick of things. So if you're out there and you're listening to this interview, this talk, and you feel like you're in the middle of it and you don't know how to get out, get Tammy's book, read through her experiences, but then realize that there's something in your life that you're not doing. You need to pivot out of it. And once you're out of it, you'll see things so clearly and you'll realize, oh my goodness, this happened for this reason. And now I'm so strong in this direction that maybe I can help other people.
Yeah.
One of the things that they used to say, Tammy, too, was that, medicine men or sages, right, didn't become medicine men or medicine women or sages because of all of their gifts. They became that way because of all of their trauma, right? They usually were the ones that almost died with fevers, or they were the ones that almost, died in battle and stuff like that. They had so many experiences that the wisdom came from that. They end up becoming peaceful and calm and being able to help others through that way, rather than becoming the exact opposite of that, which would be still living in the fear, still living in the anxiety. And that's where you see I want to say the criminal aspect of it go. Those people haven't, found the love. They are still living in the fear. Would you?
That is, I love how you capture things so beautifully. That is so true. And I myself, did live in that fear for a long time. And it's when you come through it that you can, as you say, you can really see things clearly. And I've taken all of that, and now focus in on helping others to actually really to get through and not to remain in that victim mode. A lot of people, yes, everyone has a story and everyone has been through something. Mm-hmm. Some might be termed worse than others, but everyone reacts differently to different traumas. But some people get stuck in that victim mode and others actually use it to their advantage and move through it and move on. So I hope with what I do is actually moving people through that victim mode so that they can actually see things clearly, and then they can go on and help people as well. So it has that roll-on effect, that ripple effect, because if I'm helping one person get out of victim mode, if you think about it, if they're a victim and they've had children and they're raising their children with fear rather than with love and light and being able to see the positive in things. So if I can help a person live in the love,
Yeah.
then they're going to raise children that can live in the love and have the resilience and then they're likely to get through life with more resilience and then raise their children. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, it creates a huge ripple effect. It really does.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So that's what I hope I'm doing.
I think that's exactly what this book's going to do. Because I see this beautiful woman in front of me that has this wonderful gift to share with the world. And I thank you for that, Tammy.
Thank you. Thank you, LaFay. I don't know how to respond to that. Thank you.
You're welcome. So is there any last words that you would like to say to our audience as they're listening?
I'd like to thank you for this interview and taking this opportunity, and your listeners and your audience for taking the time to listen as well. And I just want to say, no matter what you've been through in life, you can get through it. You can recover from trauma. You'll never, ever, ever be the person you once were. It fundamentally changes you, but you can become another more improved version of who you once were. So what I would say is, don't try to be the person you once were. You never will be, but you can just enhance who you were and just blossom into somebody that will just keep blossoming and keep growing and keep developing. And yeah, I just thank you for listening.
Wonderful. I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you, Tammy. I love that. Should
I let them know that they can get the book through Amazon?
Yes, absolutely you should. Please do that.
Through Amazon.com. So yeah, just Amazon. I think they're based in the US, aren't they? I don't know, wherever Amazon's based, but yeah, it's through Amazon.
Yeah, there's Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.uk, all of those ones, right? And any information is going to be below this anyway for people to contact you, get your information to your website as well as to the Amazon book. And anything that we've forgotten, we're going to make sure it's in the show notes. Okay, guys? So thank you, Tammy, and thank you guys for listening. Bye for now.
Thanks, LaFay.